And you see Megadora coming like he's clawing down onto the street, taking down the bridge, which is more scary. She exits left. We're gonna probably let her go in the alley and cut to that. We're now on our set. The scene in the Tokyo alley is a scene that is crucial because I wanted very much to get the point of view of one person. So the Tokyo attack is from the point of view of Mako as a little girl. It's a big scene shot from a very small point of view.
There's no way we could have built Elizabeth Street in its entirety. All 400 feet, although I think Guillermo probably wanted to. We've taken the alleyway piece of that 400 foot of road, and that's what we've replicated here.
When you go into the set, then you try to match the textures and everything you are directed in the real street, you try to match it on the set.
The challenge is going from the real world to a design world and be able to cut from one image in the outdoors into one image in the indoors and make that as seamless as possible.
All right, let's rehearse.
Okay, rehearsing.
Bam! Bounce. Bam! Away. Whoops.
The little herd of dumpsters behind us we see that are getting ready to be scrunched.
The buildings, the cars, everything was rigged with the same hydraulic system. So the whole set would bounce when the kaiju is walking.
The cars jump up and down as, of course, the monster approaches, and then at a certain point, the CG will take over, and his claw comes in looking for her and tears the ground up.
So I crushed it. So she reacts to that. Action. She backs up, and she needs to watch it go bam, bam. When you heighten the reality on an artificial set and you make a real street a little more artificial, they all meet in the middle.
Initiating no action!
One of the very original ideas that have grown from this movie is the way the two pilots and the Jaegers interact is through what we've come to call the drift.
You need two human beings to run a Jaeger by connecting neurally. It's quite advanced technology.
Okay, Gypsy, lining up nicely.
Every memory, good, bad, everything, they become one.
They're completely immersed in the heads-up display.
One of the first things I pitched to Legendary, let's make it two pilots.
That's why I was thinking you might vertically stack them.
I would never do that because then you're gaining logic when you're losing drama. I think the fact that these guys are gonna be able to see each other, they're gonna be able to, you need that. You don't want intercom. I really, literally want the representation of they're both in the head.
Within this headspace, there are no secrets, nothing's hidden. It's an extraordinarily intimate experience.
So again, to reiterate, Ringo's coming out of the drift into the spasm into calibration.
Yes.
Okay.
Travis wanted a sort of a magical, ethereal space where the pilots would look at each other outside the compound, sort of a ghost, a place where they look at each other in spirit. But I cannot dedicate days to shoot these guys translucent and all this stuff. So I said, let them blend through memories.
Roll camera, please.
We art directed the drift to be black and white from the moment we shot it. So the actors had duplicates of their clothes in black and white, sort of a blue grays, you know, very cold. Then I came up with the idea of using lighting strikes.
Even before she unwraps it.
To bleach the skin, to make it look blue.
I did her completely in black and grayscale, so that she would almost become a background part of the memory.
What we did is shoot a camera going to the left, and then another piece of another memory would go to the left. So the memories would blend. You know, that you would see somebody running in the foreground and a room would be in the background, and we generated an enormous amount of material.
When you feel the light is out, you will feel it. You'll wake up.
Marco, don't get caught in the moment. Marco!
We need to sometimes do the simplest tricks in the book.
You can start with the lifting of the arm. Would be great.
Where instead of morphing or doing a CG moment, I do it in camera. I do it like in a theatrical way. For example, when she goes back to her flashback, I do it with sound and the voice fades out.
Marco!
And Navarro and David Lee rigged the lights in the compa to fade out. Ashes start falling. And she starts walking, and you see she's walking on the street, and it's done on camera. Or Raleigh showing up in the flashback. There were talks about making him translucent and come out of the walls. And I said, no, let's just do a great shot with him standing there. And we understand he's in the memory. These simple tricks that are very theatrical actually worked really well. It's a scene that I am really, really proud
of. Something out there had discovered us. They counted on the humans to hide, to give up, to fail.
We will not die today. Today we will live forever. Today we are canceling the apocalypse.
There's a whole bunch of different storylines that are far beyond what seems to be, on the surface, a giant action movie.
And Idris, you say, are you sure about this? Grab something, we don't see what it is.
You know, in a movie this big with such an amazing storyline, you need the anchors, the human anchors. You and I are the only two that ever ran solo combat. That's why I brought you here.
They could go here. This is the kind of thing that every kid dreams of doing when they grow up.
I wanted this movie to not be about a country saving the world. I wanted it to be the world saving the world.
Saving the world's hard.
I have no time to grieve.
So I needed a very strong leader, a Japanese girl, an American pilot, 2 Australians, 2 Russian pilots, and Chinese pilots. All of them together are necessary to save the world.
Look the enemy in the eye, face it head on.
The name Pentecost already is telling you what a moral guy he is, and I needed somebody that was a fixed point.
He kind of like doesn't mind to take the world on his shoulders, no matter how big the problem is.
Mako is too inexperienced to rein in her memories during combat.
And I needed somebody also that had the aura of paternity, that could be a father to Mako.
We really wanted to see Pentecost and Mako as a believable relationship, a believable family.
You would not confuse the relationship for a romantic relationship. Here's the dog bark, you look down,
I wanted the Australians to be fearless and brave. Rob has a ruggedness that I believe he has like the appearance of a brawler, you know, like a guy that can play arrogance from a place of insecurity.
From a very, very young age, Chuck grew up being trained to be a Jaeger pilot.
Who am I? I'm the guy who's got to deliver this bomb. That's who I am. That's not the point.
My character made a decision whether to stay in the military or to be a father. And I stayed in the military, so we haven't had a chance to be a family.
Herc was never a father to him. Chuck is more fueled by a resentment towards his father.
The two Russian pilots are two ex-prison guards that were guarding the border. They are not necessarily the most sophisticated, but they are hardcore.
Sasha and Alexis have a relationship that's ambiguous. And Guillermo won't give us an answer. He's kind of given us, well, we don't know if you're lovers or if you're brother and sister or whatever you think.
It's good. It's a little vague, so people have to determine what our relationship is.
An interesting guy, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll try.
The idea was to put together a male and a female that didn't trust anyone, and to see these two people coming together. Not because they are super strong separately, but because together they can be strong.
Both of those characters' life has been on hold for a long time. Mako's been trying to overcome, you know, this horrible childhood she had. And since I lost my brother and lost my function in this world, my life has been completely on hold as well.
There was a good moment there. But what I'm thinking is, for me, the important thing is for you to connect with her eyes.
Yeah.
And to tell her what the text means.
At first, Riley and Mako don't get along very well. She doesn't trust him. But after the drift, they accept everything about each other.
It's not about how strong or smart we are. It's about recognizing our weaknesses. Through their relationship, they find some kind of hope and like future and reason to live, you know? There's a really good sense that they both have a future at the end of this film.
It starts with pilots that work as groups, and they are very, very envious of each other. But invisibly, as the barriers fall, everybody becomes a hero.
The biggest challenge is just wrapping our head around the scope and the scale. It requires us to think about movie making in a different way.
You have a frame of just Gypsy Danger. And Gypsy Danger is 250 feet tall, but if you don't have scale cues nearby, it could be 20 feet tall, you can't quite tell.
We're talking, you know, huge skyscraper-sized things. So there's a lot of scale cues that we had to throw in, you know, little handrails that lead up to a little hatch.
All right, here we go. Parker, 48 frames.
We wanted these things to be believable, but when you stand back and look at them, they read as a cohesive design.
It's gonna be him getting up, hand first, like carrying a very delicate tray, you know?
It takes us out of standard human scale filmmaking. You know, you're dealing with rain and storms swirling around a skyscraper-sized thing that's moving. And it presents some design and some technical problems that I've never quite tackled before to make that read. And it's exciting to see it work.
So you don't have to be synced on that. Okay. You will sync in the punch, and then on the way back one, him alone, and then you join him. And then you guys go on the second punch is the power move.
One thing Guillermo didn't want was very naturalistic, realistic human motion on the Jaegers, even though they're controlled by humans inside of them. He wanted the Jaegers to the machines, vehicles that the humans are in, and to have that feeling.
There's definitely those little peekaboo moments where the scale, it comes into play. And you see the big gears turning, and you see the pistons pushing and locking into place.
There's some really massive digging equipment that we looked at in terms of just what really gigantic machinery looks like when it's moving and when it stops moving, and how all the little parts look. Again, that only gets you so far, and then you just have to start using your imagination.
The first way you can do scale is context. We talked about moving in the streets, and I wrote a little note that says, "Cars fly like pebbles." Using cars as the language of debris. Like instead of putting just debris, we would put little cars, desks, pieces of paper. When they smash into a building, you would have all this debris that would be so minute.
Guillermo designs events like shipping containers being hit against a kaiju's head and things fall out. So we're dealing with a camera in a helicopter that's looking at a fight, but they're fighting with real-world scale items. So the shipping containers fall apart, and out drops TVs and couches, which Guillermo wants to see because he has this Guillermo sense of humor.
The containers have a moped, a bicycle, a car, living room set. You know, all these things come into play that give scale, but they're also fun. Within the kaiju itself, the texturing, when you go close, you see what looks like a scale, and then you go closer and there's a bunch of bumps and cracks that give you the scale. If you do a close-up in a 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot tall monster, you know, you never get that close. You never get the sense of texture that you get with a kaiju. The second trait that you do for scale is speed. They need to feel heavy. They need to feel very heavy. There was a shot of the kaiju climbing out of the water, and we went through many, many versions because I didn't feel the weight. So I wanted this kaiju to really depend on that heavy, heavy front, and to convey that you need them to move slowly. You don't want the fights to be at the scale of a 6 foot tall monster.
Imagine this is a bus, and this is a bus, and this is a car, and this is a house. You know, that's the scale we're working at, and so it's got to maintain that scale.
I'm very attentive to physics, and if I don't buy the physics of a shot, if I don't think that a piece of debris bounces off, or the atmospheric haze is not conveying the scale the right way, on creatures this scale, it needs to affect the environment around it. It needs to be done in a way that feels massive.
Yeah.
And I think this is a great place for floaters.
Ah, yeah. Bipedal down below?
I think we should stay in the monster.
Okay.
I made it clear to all the designers that I didn't want anyone, including myself, to purposely reference any existing kaiju movie. We never, ever wanted to make it an homage or a reference movie. I wanted the movie to be its own thing. I think eventually when we do the final model, we may want to leave this part more blank, you know, more like a dinosaur chest. When I design monsters, I constantly am trying to find a way to be able to look at a monster for 20 minutes or more and have that design constantly transforming. Make it smaller, and that could be that.
Okay, sure.
And this becomes a little bigger forearm. And I like these legs better than these legs. If you can keep constantly shifting profile on a kaiju, then the audience doesn't feel they've already seen it. But there was one kaiju that was very difficult, Otachi. You know, it's a kaiju that encompasses about 3/4 of the Hong Kong battle. And I wanted that kaiju to work in the water, in the land, and in the air. And for that kaiju to feel different every time. We have some outlandish kaiju, but I didn't want them to be so outlandish that you would not think it's a real animal. We wanted to stick to the basic groups of kaijus that would be based on life forms that exist on Earth. So we tried to echo a gorilla, we tried to echo a shark.
The fact that they seem to be based and sourced in nature, there's a reality to them. The features, you know, there's something very natural about them.
I wanted to echo animal powers and animal defense mechanisms. For example, there's a kaiju that spits acid and has a really elaborate sac under its neck. And we came up with the idea that it needed to regurgitate. It was like acid reflux times X. We came up with the idea that some of them would have electrical charges, charging and discharging that electricity, like an electric eel. All these things are weapons that you would see on a smaller scale in nature. One of the rules I gave to the kaiju designers is I wanted to think how a man in a suit would fit in there. The kaijus are trying to honor the spirit and the feeling of the classical kaiju. We are keeping them mostly two-legged, not humanoid, but sort of a silhouette that reminds you of those classical ones. Each kaiju has been evolved and tinkered with to be more and more effective at killing machine. So you see the Category 3s, the Category 4s, and the Category 5s. And each of them is not only bigger and badder, but it's also smarter and faster. We wanted to come up with an idea that would make them feel like natural disasters. You know, like you have the scale for tornadoes and a scale for earthquakes. A kaiju is like that. A kaiju is a force of nature. They can be destroying a city, you still love them. The basic enjoyment you get from a kaiju movie is the same that you get into a mega wrestling match. And half the fun is to see the kaiju that emits radiation from its mouth fight the kaiju that is impervious to radiation and can fly, you know? So you see them go at each other, and in this case, Kaiju versus Jaeger was the same thing. So we're gonna go linear before we start going crazy. I really assembled a group of designers that knew and loved anime.
Guillermo always has a very well-defined overview of the look of his pictures.
The mecha? Mm-hmm. They would need to be able to carry the robot like a robot.
He's a guy who really appreciates refined, interesting machines, and he has a certain kind of unique take on what machines are really all about.
We really went into a lot of detail into the technical aspects of each robot and each machine. We decided to build them from the inside out. We actually built the way the pistons, the relays, the torque, everything was worked in detail, and then we pulled back and started figuring out the vents, the skin on top of that, until you have the whole robot.
A great deal about these shapes and what shapes would work best for, say, a Jaeger from China, kind of what accoutrements and aesthetics could be brought into the design.
We patterned a lot of the language of the robots after World War II war machinery. So we have nose art, we have notches, markings of enemies down.
They all wanted to have their own individuality, including the interiors. They're all colored in their appropriate colors, their appropriate graphics, that all sort of indicate their culture.
We color-coded Cherno, like the T-series tanks, and sort of a nuclear reactor on top of that. It looks like a giant-headed robot, but if you look at it carefully, it's actually a smaller robot carrying the reactor like this. We color-coded a Striker Eureka after off-terrain vehicles, sort of semi-camouflage, outback colors. I wanted that robot to be full of bravado and Australian modesty, you know, really a forthcoming. We color-coded the Chinese robot in gold and crimson because it's a victorious, auspicious Jaeger. He has 2 arms on one side, super quick, so his fighting style is very defined. We color-coded Gypsy, like the planes in World War II, with very American colors, you know, blue, and we gave it a bomber. When I watched a monster movie, the big money shot for me was the monster. And in Japanese kaiju films, that's what it was about. Kaiju.
The word kaiju means monster in Japanese.
The kaiju is a classic Japanese genre. Giant beasts and monsters that have all kinds of different characteristics and shapes and sizes.
The kaijus in Japan have many, many forms. What I love about the Japanese imagination of the kaiju and the monsters in general is that it's not bridled by biology as much as Western imagination. The kaiju can be very outlandish. They are almost ornamental.
Giving dimension to and relatability to the kaiju, as strange as that may sound, that is a particular gift of Guillermo's. It's also a specific goal of Guillermo's.
The pageantry aspect of the kaiju films was so great. It was about seeing the monster destroy the greatest maquettes. So everything was fetishistic for me. I wanted the tanks, I wanted the buildings for my toys. Everything was a toy. The monster was a toy, the tanks were a toy, the planes were a toy. So it was like a universe of toys and monsters, which for a kid is irresistible. There's something very pure and very full of love in monster movies, even more so in kaiju movies. You just love the creatures, and giant robots, that's a cherry on top. In Western cinema, there is not a great tradition of mecha. You can see beautiful robots in movies like Westworld or Terminator,
Mecha culture. And it is basically a titanic robot that is in the style of that Japanese pop culture.
Mecha in anime is gorgeous. It's about fluid shapes. It's really beautiful.
Mecha.
I was very influenced by anime, you know, mainly the anime of my youth. Tetsujin 28, which is an anime that is really beautiful. And the live-action series from Japan, Space Giant, you know, which was a series that was very important for me as a kid. There were these robots that would transform into rockets. All this tradition that in Japan is an honor. There are designers that only specialize in doing mecha. I really think that people that like monster movies, mecha movies, those movies are tapping to a place that is really, really intimate in you and is really, really pure in you. And it's part of the essence of who you are. All these things is a fascination that is really part of being a kid. Something like forceps is one of those things that can kill us. It's a very simple day to start the movie, to start with around 10 setups, but I want everybody to be on their toes and doing the best they can.
Charlie goes by, she turns. That's good, arm to the right.
Guillermo is in a class of his own in his ability to bring like a fully dimensional world together that you really can believe in.
He's passionate about this subject matter, and yet at the same time, with his absolute genius eye, he's really the only choice for us.
He puts so much attention to the detail and cares so much about how it looks. From the costume design, to the lighting, to the props, everything. You can't help but sort of drink the Kool-Aid and get invested in it too.
We started working the visual Bible, developing the screenplay. The more we worked in it, I knew that I wanted to love it, enjoy every second of it, and give it everything I could.
You're trying to brace yourself going to shake, and then you say, let's finish this, and you go both start working.
If he directs a monster movie, it's not just monster movie, but something more. Stop!
I'm here, Brother Billy.
Stop!
Great. To make a movie about scale, both in the sense of the adventure and in the scale in the sense of the images that we were gonna do, I was hoping we could do things that had never been shown quite this way on film before.
All master filmmakers are obsessed with their visions, and Guillermo is especially so.
And it has to do with how incredibly prepared he is as a storyteller.
The style of this film is very much like a comic book, you know, like where everyone's larger than life.
The day we face the monsters at our door and bring the fight to them!
I wanted the movie to feel very graphic, more like an illustration. And I wanted to give you very saturated colors in the city through the fluorescent neon lights, water, snowstorms, really romantic almost, really beautiful and epic. This movie has its own beautiful, crazy, aesthetic universe.
Ranger, 6 minutes to neural bridge calibration.
And I wanted it to feel really like an adventure movie.
We have 2 signatures, both category 4s.
So we started making it more like the frontier language. We started talking about riding a Jaeger jockey, ranger. The idea that this was the Alamo, a final stand against these creatures.
You have a real story with interesting characters that you're going to follow that's punctuated once in a while with these giant, spectacular set pieces of robots fighting monsters.
But it's all about the impact.
His passion and his expertise allows us all to sort of sit back and feel confident in what we're doing.
I'm so impressed at how Guillermo has managed to create this world in a way that, you know, you believe.
He's a true artist.
I think he's a 1 in a billion. I really do. I would do anything that man asked me to do.
Honorable men in this business are hard to find, you know, and Guillermo has it in spades.
What we went for was a movie more epic and more stylized in a way that is conducive to the story, not just eye candy, but eye protein. What we went for was sort of a thing that I would jokingly call Gothic, because it's like Gothic but tech. The rust and decay of a medieval castle, but applied to the future.
This sensei's humble abode.
Guillermo, he has so much to offer in terms of visual descriptions and just levels of detail that he gets into.
Well, we do color zones, But I'm gonna need for like everything to be practical or from above, like, as much as possible.
He has his own ideas, and he stays true to those.
Let me show you, because we are very much prop-oriented. The finish is like that of a Jeep. It's very dented, oily, so they are very much mobile things.
The set is aged heavily, it is rusty. You know, it's completely different than these nice, shining control rooms that you see that are very polished in many movies.
Better get ready. And if you notice, a lot of the almost distressed or urban or gothic look about his sets in this, again, are very much based in reality. You walk around the set and a lot of it is huge, great chunks of metal. It's not all plasterboard and, you know, artifice. It's really there.
I wanted the movie to function with a very, very drab-colored universe, lit by very bright colored lights. And what this does, if you create a world that is saturated in colors with an incredibly rich base of blacks, and you apply the same rules to the design of the CG shots, they become of a piece.
It's about unifying everything, and you unify it with color and the way it's aged. Even the interior of our con pods are distressed. They do show their battle damage and all their character.
I wanted to do rust, metals that look used, dinged, damaged, pieces of the wall are falling, the paint is peeling.
Because running it looks like rust.
Yeah. Yeah.
We used to do one layer, one color, then another layer,
Okay.
another, and just where it lands, it lands.
Okay.
So it's 3 colors, I think.
Okay. All right. The whole aspect of the set is we are losing a war. They're struggling to keep everything working. And that's what we really tried to portray in the set, is that, you know, this particular space is a little more claustrophobic.
And let's put the tank there, and we move the yellow tanks where that tank was.
All right, so come in here, I'll rearrange this stuff, and if you don't like it, we'll move it again in the morning.
You can see the decay and just the character that that all takes.
One.
Those big shatter dome doors, they look real. They look like real steel. They're fake, but the level of rust and the level of detail that goes into them, it was great.
This sense of decay in the high-tech structures creates a very romantic feel. The environments are beautiful to look at, but they are not sleek, super designed, futuristic environments. We made the world not feel a futuristic, glossy place, but at a very identifiable, very visceral, very now kind of future.
The first thing I said to Guillermo was, I think we're gonna need a bigger orchestra. Because the size of this thing, I thought we're gonna have to match this. So, you know, what can we do? So clearly it had to be an epic size orchestra. I got very inspired by the script, and obviously talking to Guillermo. Guillermo had great ideas that he shared with me, and then that really put me on track.
There's a moment where it sounds like a bit like we should make it grow.
Sure, okay.
And then throne it. Like that's because it's easy to remember.
Guillermo's vision was so clear on this that we clicked right from the beginning. He has a great sense for instruments or music in general. He had a great ability to describe of what he wanted.
I just sat down and wrote these big, long pieces of music, these suites, as I like to call them. We had the Kaiju theme. He always spoke about having this be very brass-heavy and have more of a traditional organic sound for the Kaiju. They're equal in size, so I needed something equal in power. So there's actually several themes we have for them as the different categories start to get bigger. They also have like a calling motif. We have these big brass chords that just kind of hint to them. Rally's theme is kind of became Gypsy's theme, or the other way around. Obviously, they're pretty much ones. It has that more modern sound. And it could play also very nicely in an emotional way, just with a smaller string section and just a solo guitar. We had Mako's theme.
But it's her alone, I think, rather than Pentecost. Right. The other melody is Loss of Family, which is great, and Finding Family. Mm-hmm. I love it. Beautiful.
Cool. I tried to place the themes in a clever way to not clutter it too much so that you have all these themes going on and then you don't end up using them enough because you have all this overlap. We recorded percussion, strings, and brass. Those are the big three elements that we did separate, and then all the other solo instruments, the erhu, the guitar, all that was done separate. And then we brought in the choir at the very end. We actually came up with some Russian lyrics to have a little bit of that authenticity with it. He wanted really something original that was his for this film, so he referenced the guitar sound that he liked in there, and then he always said, this is not a military film, it's a collaboration between the different countries, and so it's been an amazing experience working with him, and it was just so inspiring to have him comment on the pieces.
What we have here is the baby kaiju head. And we took this head here, started putting clay on it a few weeks back, and now we're down to crunch time.
This gets bolted onto the front. Yeah. So now we can lift the whole unit and drive it.
When you're on set, it doesn't seem like it's a project which is full of green screen, even though there's obviously massive amounts.
I mean, maybe that helps. Wouldn't the front of the head sort of bury it there?
Yeah, that'll work.
The injectable surface should be around here.
Around there.
I think he likes seeing things on set which work.
There's still some thickness to it, so you want that surface.
So you've got stuff to work with. Even in the back of scene, there's this immense piece of kaiju meat.
That's science right there.
And that helps for a lot of reasons. It gives a great guide for the performances, a great guide for the lighting, so that the cinematographer has something that they can light.
Yeah, that's better. Okay, look, I haven't exactly had a very good day. I about 5 minutes before brain death occurs, I don't want to spend it talking about it here.
Zip up, light them up. Zip it under light.
There's nothing that beats the tangible things that they're working with and interacting with. And in the case of the interior of the carcass, you know, they're treading, they could have been treading on green cloth, but they're treading on these carefully made objects.
We are stitching the membrane onto the matrix here. This would represent the brain stem or the cerebellum. They're going to be entering on this far point, and they walk along here. And then you can see elements that will be hanging above here that will represent the brain portion.
Off mark.
Ready? Action!
We've reached the upper pelvic area. Moving to the 25th vertebra.
3, 2, 1, action!
Got it. All right. Check the gauge.
Check it. Check it.
This is definitely the hardest, physically demanding thing that I've ever done.
Put the weight on your right foot, yeah.
Being on an elliptical for 14 hours a day is pretty horrible.
It's quite the workout. They've made me feel quite nervous going into it. Like, well, you better be in shape.
It's so physically exhausting. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Cry babies.
The physicality that the actors that we had to do is real.
The key is just to show up as fit as you can possibly be, like do a lot of cardio, eat really well.
They all look good and they can fight. Every single one of them has awesome abs. I think that's a requirement.
In preparation for the stunt work, the production put us with a weight trainer, and then we did fight training.
It has been the most amount of physical exercise that I've done in my life.
We did some fighting styles, you know, the street fight combined with martial arts.
I have learned so many fight moves, the jabs and like the hooks, and I love the uppercuts.
Rinko and I do a pretty extensive stick fighting sequence.
Yeah. Should be fine. Yes, like a sword.
Rinko had not had a stick in her hand ever in her life, and we had to literally start them from scratch. Rinko did very well. I was really impressed with her.
We spent hours and hours learning this fight. Guillermo wanted something very kind of raw and visceral to juxtapose the giant robot, monster fights. He wanted something, with no wires and no stuntmen and to feel as real as possible.
That was fantastic.
When people see the fight, it's pretty impressive. I'm quite proud of what we did.
Shooting inside the Jaeger was difficult.
That's the big gimbal set. They're being like shaken and tipped and rain's coming down.
Signal that is going to like crippling, back.
You're pretty exhausted going through these movements and motions, and you're doing take after take.
This and tomorrow. Minutes a day. Wow.
It was very demanding.
They just feel the surge of neural pain.
And every time we put them in the cockpit, they would come out trembling and looking for the sunlight.
We're breaking in these things. And I know Rinko, she doesn't moan. She's a warrior.
She was super hardcore, never complained, never said one thing, always smiling, ready to stay there for hours. So go figure that one.